Shinzo Abe was born on September 21, 1954, in Tokyo, Japan, into a family where politics was as common as breakfast. His father, Shintaro Abe, was a powerful politician, and his grandfather, Nobusuke Kishi, had even served as prime minister. From the outside, it looked like he was born with every advantage: connections, education, and a famous family name. Yet that privilege carried its own pressure. From a young age, people around him expected that one day he would enter politics. The question was not will he lead, but when and how? Growing up with that kind of expectation can be its own test, because you must prove that your success is your own, not just a gift from your ancestors. As a boy, Shinzo Abe did not immediately dream of becoming prime minister. He was a quiet child, sometimes shy, who enjoyed watching movies and spending time with friends. At school, he was neither a superstar nor a failure. He went to respected private schools and later to Saka University, where he studied political science. He also spent some time studying in the United States as a visiting student, seeing a different style of democracy and a different kind of society. This mixture of Japanese tradition and foreign experience helped shape his view of the world. He understood both the pride of Japan's history and the need to adapt to a changing global environment. After university, Abe joined a steel company, Kobe Steel, working in the business world rather than jumping straight into politics. This time in industry taught him how companies think, how jobs are created, how economic decisions affect workers on the factory floor. But politics was never far away. His father remained a major figure in government, serving as foreign minister and holding other key positions. Family conversations, contacts, and events kept pulling Shinzo back toward public life. When his father died in 1991, Abe decided to step fully into the political arena and run for his father's old seat in parliament. In 1993, Shinzo Abe was elected to Japan's House of Representatives. He entered parliament as a young man carrying a heavy legacy. Many colleagues saw him as the son and grandson of giants, but he wanted to be more than a shadow. In the Liberal Democratic Party, he worked his way up, taking on roles that put him close to power: Deputy Chief Cabinet Secretary, Party Secretary General, and Chief Cabinet Secretary. In these jobs, he learned how the state actually runs, how laws move through committees, how crises are handled behind closed doors, and how fragile public trust can be. Shinzo Abe was known for his conservative views. He believed strongly in patriotism, in a proud view of Japan's past, and in the need for his country to stand firmly in the world. That sometimes meant touching sensitive topics, like Japan's wartime history and its pacifist constitution. He felt that Japan should have more freedom to defend itself and cooperate militarily with allies. For some Japanese, these ideas were inspiring. For others, they were worrying, raising fears of returning to a darker time. Even before he became prime minister, Abe was at the center of debates about what kind of nation Japan should be in the 21st century. In 2006, at the age of 52, Shinzo Abe became prime minister of Japan for the first time, succeeding Junichiro Koizumi. He was the youngest prime minister since World War II and the firstborn after the war. There was a sense of generational change. Many people hoped he would modernize Japan's politics and shake off years of economic stagnation and political drift. He spoke about building a beautiful country, strengthening education, reforming the bureaucracy, and making Japan a more normal nation that could act like other major powers. But his first time in office did not go as planned. His government faced a series of scandals involving ministers, including funding issues and mismanagement. One cabinet minister even took his own life in the middle of a controversy, shocking the nation. Economic reforms were difficult, and his approval ratings dropped. On top of political trouble, Abe's own health began to fail. He suffered from a chronic intestinal illness that caused pain and exhaustion. In 2007, only about a year after becoming prime minister, he abruptly resigned, citing his health and the political situation. For many observers, this seemed like the end of his story at the top. A young leader had risen fast, stumbled, and fallen. Critics said he was weak, unable to handle pressure. Supporters were disappointed and confused. In Japanese politics, losing the prime ministership can easily mean disappearing forever from serious contention. Yet Shinzo Abe was not ready to be a footnote in history. Away from the spotlight, he focused on recovering his health and reflecting on what had gone wrong. He read, listened, and watched as other leaders tried and failed to bring stability. He quietly prepared for a second chance, if it ever came. The world around Japan was changing. China's economic and military power were growing. North Korea continued its missile and nuclear tests, raising security fears in the region. Inside Japan, the economy remained sluggish, with deflation and low growth draining energy from society. Families worried about jobs, pensions, and the future of their children. In this atmosphere, many people felt that the country needed a leader with both experience and determination. By 2012, the Liberal Democratic Party chose Shinzo Abe again as its leader in the 2012 election. Abe led his party to a major victory and returned as prime minister. It was a rare political comeback, especially in Japan, where former leaders usually do not get a second turn. This time, he came with a clear economic plan that the world would soon call Abenomics. The idea was to fight deflation, stimulate growth, and shake the country out of its long economic sleep. The plan rested on three arrows: bold monetary policy, flexible government spending, and structural reforms to make Japanese industry more competitive. Under Abenomics, Japan's central bank expanded the money supply aggressively and kept interest rates very low. The government increased spending on certain projects to boost demand. At first, the results brought some hope. The yen weakened, helping exporters. The stock market rose. Unemployment fell, and business confidence improved. Many people who had watched Japan stagnate for years felt that something was finally moving. Yet the structural reforms, the deep changes in how industries and labor markets worked, were harder to implement. Critics argued that without stronger reforms, the benefits would not last. Supporters countered that, without Abe's push, Japan might have slid even further into decline. Abe's agenda was not only economic, he also worked to change Japan's security policy. For decades, the country's constitution had limited its military to self-defense and prohibited participation in most overseas operations. Abe believed that in a dangerous world, Japan needed to be able to cooperate more fully with allies like the United States, especially as North Korea tested missiles and nuclear devices. His government reinterpreted the constitution to allow collective self-defense, meaning Japanese forces could aid allies under attack in certain situations. This move was highly controversial and sparked large protests, with many citizens fearing a step away from Japan's post-war pacifism. But Abe insisted that the change was necessary to protect the nation and keep the alliance system strong. On the international stage, Abe became a familiar face. He built close relationships with leaders in the United States, Europe, India, and Southeast Asia. He promoted the idea of a free and open Indo-Pacific, working with countries like the US, Australia, and India to balance growing influence from other powers and to keep sea routes open and secure. He was active in trade diplomacy, pushing Japan into regional and global trade agreements. When one major country withdrew from a large Pacific trade deal, Abe helped lead the remaining nations to sign a new version of the agreement, showing that Japan could be a driving force for economic cooperation, not just a passenger. At home, his government was not free from scandal. There were accusations of favoritism in certain business and school deals linked to acquaintances, and reports that officials had altered documents connected to these cases. These controversies damaged his popularity and raised questions about his administration's transparency. Although Abe denied personal wrongdoing, the scandals showed that even leaders with strong control can be hit by weaknesses inside their own systems. The lesson was clear: political riches, power, influence. Long tenure always come with the risk of losing public trust if ethical lines are blurred. During his second time in office, Shinzo Abe also had to respond to natural disasters and global health threats. Earthquakes, typhoons, and other events tested the government's emergency response. He visited damaged towns, spoke with survivors, and promised support for rebuilding. In the later years of his term, a global health crisis began to spread, forcing Japan like other nations, to rethink public health, borders, and daily life. These overlapping crises showed that a leader's job is not just to pursue grand visions, but also to handle the unexpected with steadiness. By 2020, Abe had become Japan's longest-serving prime minister in terms of consecutive days in office. He had outlasted many of his foreign counterparts and had become a symbol of continuity in a world of rapid change. Yet his old illness returned, and his health once again began to fail. Remembering his first painful resignation, he decided not to push his body beyond its limits. In August 2020, he announced that he would step down as prime minister to seek treatment, saying he could not continue as leader without the full strength required. He left office on his own terms, this time after a long and consequential period rather than a short and troubled one. Even after resigning, Abe remained a powerful figure in Japanese politics. He stayed in parliament and continued to influence debates inside his party. Many saw him as a shadow shogun, a behind-the-scenes kingmaker whose opinions still mattered enormously. Some admired him for giving Japan a clearer strategic direction and for trying to revive its economy. Others criticized him for his nationalism, for not doing enough on social issues like the low birth rate, and for controversies over history and civil liberties. His legacy was complex, mixing achievements with unresolved questions. Just like most major leaders, on July 8, 2022, while giving a campaign speech in the city of Nara, Shinzo Abe was shot and fatally wounded. The attack shocked Japan and the world. Political violence of that kind was extremely rare in modern Japan, and many people could not believe that such a thing had happened in broad daylight. He died later that day, and tributes poured in from across the globe. Supporters mourned a leader they saw as having dedicated his life to his country. Even some critics felt stunned, recognizing that regardless of political disagreements, his impact on Japan was enormous. When we look at Shinzo Abe's life as a story of riches, it is tempting to focus only on his powerful family, high offices, and international recognition. But the deeper riches in his story are more subtle. One kind of wealth was his resilience. He experienced a humiliating early resignation and serious illness, but came back to become the longest-serving prime minister in his country's history. Another kind of wealth was his ability to shape the national conversation about economics, defense, and Japan's place in the world event among people who did not fully agree with him. A third kind was the strategic clarity he brought to Japan's foreign policy. Building partnerships that will likely outlast his time on Earth, his story also carries heavy lessons. Power built on a famous name and long rule can still be shaken by scandal, by public doubt, and by the limits of human health. Economic plans can bring some success and still leave deep problems unsolved. Efforts to strengthen national pride can inspire some and alienate others. For your viewers, this complexity is important. Real leaders are not perfect heroes and simple stories. They are complicated human beings, making hard choices in difficult times. In the end, Shinzo Abe's riches were not just the offices he held, but the questions he forced Japan to face. How should a nation remember its past? How should it protect itself in a dangerous world? How can it care for its aging population and still give hope to its young people? His life shows that sometimes the greatest impact you can have is not to give final answers, but to push your country to keep struggling with the right questions. For a channel built on story of riches, his journey from political heir to failed young prime minister to comeback leader to symbol whose legacy is still being debated shows that true richness lies not only in rising, but in rising again after you fall.